There was a trigger warning joke here. It's gone now.
Yeah. Even we got tired of it.
Though I do appreciate that they put that before everything else in the game, like even before the company logos.
It's like, okay, seriously.
I also really appreciate the wording too of just like the absolute certainty of no, there's some stuff in here that you might want to be careful about.
Yeah, this is not. This game is a lot of things, but it's not stressful.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Like, this isn't the game to play before bed when you're 15 or 26.
This really isn't the game to play when you're 15. Period.
Yeah, I mean, like, what 15-year-old would really like this game in the end? Well, I guess unless you were just that. Anyway, like, well, let's stop this train of thought and talk about, man, Silent Hill.
Man,
what a
Silent
series.
Hill. What a series, and so in a lot of ways.
Like, we really originally worked hard to get this out on Halloween, but due to technical difficulties we couldn't, so now we're going to the next scary holiday. Happy election season!
I like that. How long were you workshopping that one?
Would you believe 30 seconds?
Nice. So, yep, we're here with the first Silent Hill, the Silent Hill that doesn't get nearly enough love or credit, because Silent Hill 2. But, it's...
Also, to be fair, it was on the PlayStation, but...
Well, this was, I mean, well, no. I was gonna say this was the heyday of survival horror, but that really, I mean, there was a lot of stuff came out post Resident Evil that was really kind of riding its coattails. But the real heyday was probably the PlayStation 2 era, where even more garbage was coming out riding Resident Evil's coattails. This time it was Resident Evil 4. But still, when it comes to the pantheon of Silent Hill, this is the game that in large part ends up getting ignored for a lot of reasons. The PlayStation 2 entries take a lot of the limelight when it comes to the good Silent Hills. And post PlayStation 2, a lot of the talking points are taken up by, arguing about the merits of the series past that. But, Silent Hill 1, no one kind of talks about it ever, which is a real shame because as far as I'm concerned, that's probably my favorite of the series.
I wouldn't quite say it's my favorite, but it is arm wrestling with 3 for my favorite, which is already saying a lot in and of itself, because if any of you know me, Silent Hill 3 is probably one of my favorite games ever, period. Full stop.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It is near and dear to my heart. But to get there, because we're gonna get there eventually, we need to start at the beginning. Also, just because this is a good game that's fun to play. This isn't going to be a 10-star run. I'm not good enough at these games to do a 10-star run, but I also don't find that particular way of playing these games enjoyable. I like to kind of take my time and enjoy them, and rather than trying to run through them playing in a very specific way. Though, if that's your thing, more power to you. We're also
Certainly not more power to me.
Also, we're just going to be playing on normal, because this game's actually, it's not very easy on hard, ironically. You wouldn't expect that, but I want to make sure that I don't have any real bad hang-ups, because it's been a minute since I played this game. Well,
Like,
not
pushing
really,
5 at this point.
yeah.
Oh, Harry, your fabulous brown jacket?
So yeah, the brown tiny jacket over like the vest with the shirt underneath it, I think.
And ambiguous flares.
And like the almost bell-bottom jeans.
Oh man, but we have got a lot to talk about this game, both on its own merits and in the context of what it was really at the time and how it really stood out, and also just in context of the whole series, because it's pretty it's got all of the good parts of the first installment, in that compared to later games, it is a little bit on the weird side, but in a really charming, kind of that really distinctly they're trying to do everything they can to break the mold kind of way, which I think is kind of a reason why it really stands out to us personally. And just
is that Cheryl?
Yeah.
The voice acting.
That is the one thing that's kind of difficult. That, like, as far as,
Where
like,
are you
you know,
going?
the graphics and presentation of the game go, it's
Hey,
a lot
wait,
of times
stop.
it's, you know, some of it is you have to have been there to really be able to appreciate it. Like, I wouldn't expect at someone who cut their teeth on, you know, modern games to be able to go back to something like the NES or the Atari and be able to really appreciate and enjoy the way those games look, because they're used to, you know, more advanced stuff, and it just would come off looking primitive. But I do think for a large part, like, if a game's atmosphere works as much as you let it, and if you're just gonna sit here worrying about, like, how many jagged edges there are on textures, or, like, the fact that the PlayStation didn't handle large textures well, so, like, there's stuff like that garage door that looks all wavy, especially whenever you move past them, then yeah, obviously you're not gonna have as good a time with it as you could have. But I do think, like, graphically, for the time, this is an amazing looking game. Both in terms of just, like, the fidelity of the graphics, and also just the largeness of the game, because this is, like, probably the biggest Silent Hill game as far as, like, actual distance you cover.
So yeah, graphic images.
Yeah,
And
that's also
like,
another thing
Ray's...
that I appreciate is that, like, that warning, the wording of that warning is very certain. Like, there are graphic and disturbing images in this game, versus a lot of other games where it's like, there's some stuff here you might not like, so just a heads up. But it's also just, like, a real care to detail that goes into these games. Like, Harry's footsteps have a different sound on the concrete, and then they get all squishy and gross whenever you're walking over the viscera.
And, like, Ray's being, like, super duper nice and, like, being forgiving of, like, new players, so I'm gonna be mean here and say, boo-hoo, suck it up, look at that camera angle.
This hallway
This is a PS game.
This is also a perfect for instance of why tank controls are important, because one of the most consistent complaints about old school traditional survival horror games is they control badly, and that's, I guess, sure, but you're wrong, but okay. But the way these games work is that you can only move forward, and you control which way your character's facing, and that hallway is a perfect for instance of why that you need that, because when the camera's changing that many times, that rapidly, in so many drastic ways, you need to be able to just move deliberately in a direction and know that you're going to be able to move that way. Because if you were playing something with a more conventional 2D control scheme, which the later games did introduce, like, you get completely turned around.
Man, that's weird, says Harry. Huh. What is that?
What could it possibly be? Also, like, notice, it's hard to tell, but it looks like there's flies over that body.
Oh god, you're right. Man, this game was made with love.
Yeah.
So much love.
It's a certain kind of love.
Yeah. Great times, just rusty gates.
But-
Harry's like,
yeah.
this is fine. I'm sure my daughter's here. Like, Cheryl definitely didn't
Did
run
you
away
do this?
screaming
Is
from
this
all
a
this.
prank, Cheryl?
What's going on here?
Now this isn't very funny anymore. Oh no.
So,
So I totally did not know this until Ray told me, but oh well.
I didn't get it there this time, but it's not important. You can try to run back to the gate that you entered in, but, like, it'll be locked. mustard, the most horrifying of condiments. But another thing that you'll notice about this for the time is that these CGIs look incredible.
They are very, very beautiful, and you can just...
How do you feel?
I think the story is that there really was just somebody who pretty much lived in the studio trying to get these to work.
Yeah,
and it shows.
I'm all right, I guess.
The way this game kind of got greenlit was
Glad to hear it.
because some guy just locked himself in the office and made those FMVs, and the higher-ups were just so impressed by it that they gave him the money to do it.
Wait a second, I'm just a tourist.
But as you're probably picking up, for as much as, we've,
came here for
I
a
guess you could say
vacation.
apologize for
Just
some
got
of
here.
the more antiquated aspects of this game, one thing that is
I don't know what happened.
indefensible is the voice acting.
I'd like to find out
Like,
myself.
it's just bad.
Yeah. I mean, like, depending on your point of view, it's just kind of
Have you seen
not
the little
ha-ha
girl?
funny, but funny bad, or just like,
Just turned 7
guys,
last month.
no.
Short,
It's
black hair.
like...
My daughter.
Sorry.
It's like off-Broadway bad.
The
Like,
only person I've
it's
seen
like
in
it's
this
just
town
really
is you.
awkward. And granted, like,
Where is
it's
everything?
entirely possible that, like, a lot
I'd
of
tell
the
you if I
reason that
knew,
the original
believe me.
voice acting for the first Resident Evil is so atrocious, but like
From what I can tell,
amazingly so,
bizarre's going on.
is because the voice director didn't speak English.
That's all I know.
So whenever you have really awkward line deliveries that are emphasizing just strange words, it's
your
because the voice director who didn't speak English was just
Harry.
having the actors emphasize the words he thought
Harry
sounded
Mason.
cool. And
Sybil Bennett.
it's possible that something similar is
I'm a
going
police
on here.
officer from
I haven't
Browns, the
done
next
all
town
the
over.
research, but it's possible that the voice director didn't speak
Phones are all
English
dead,
or
and the
didn't
radio, too.
understand it very well. But
I'm
it's
going back to
still
call in
the
some law
byproduct is
enforcement.
that the voice acting can really, really take you out of the experience.
I honestly don't know much about like the whole voice acting in general. I just know that
Hold
this
it.
is the general same localization
Where do you
team
think
that
you're
handled
going?
Final Fantasy VII, which really just
daughter.
kind of
I've got to
explains
find her.
everything I need to know.
Yeah, that actually, now that
No
you say
way.
that, everything makes sense now.
Dangerous out there.
Officer Shiny Pants.
In that case, I need to find her now. Cheryl's my
Is
little
that
girl.
our tight leather pants, the
I can't
the
just
standard
leave her out
uniform
there
for
by
Brahms
herself.
officers?
Have you got a gun?
No.
I liked how Harry had to think about that. Do I have a gun?
Take this and hope you don't have to use it.
Man, this is definitely America
Now
Cop
listen to
just
me.
hands over.
Before you pull
Yeah,
the
just-
trigger, know who you're shooting.
The best cops just give their guns to the first civilian they
don't
meet in a
do it
dangerous
unless you
situation
have
and then
to.
promptly abandon them.
And don't go blasting me by mistake. Got it?
It's fine if you don't shoot me there, champ.
Yeah. Thanks.
You do best to stay nearby.
Harry still knows how to
Be
load
back
it though,
with
even
help
though
as
he's
quick
like
as
a
I can.
writer.
Oh, it's all America, remember?
Oh yeah.
We just intrinsically know guns.
Oh man, this is like the absolute thing that I will scream my head off about the game. You have an option to not pick up maps. Why? Why?
It's like that in the entire series, though. There's always an option to not pick up the map.
But I mean, like, there's some items that are you sure? Because I thought, like, the map was, like, just auto pickup in other places, but this is the one that actually has, like, a no option. Like, nah.
In 2 and 3, I know for sure that there's an option to not pick up the map.
So yeah, never mind. Indefensible for the whole series. Who would not pick up a map?
Well, I mean, I guess you can make the argument that speedrunners don't need to spend those couple of seconds when they already know the game like the back of their hand.
And the 90% of the other people who are playing this.
What's that? Huh. Radio. What's going on with that radio?
Radio. What's going on with that radio? And yeah, this is when the game stops being.
Also, one thing you'll notice
This is not a dream.
relative to a lot of its
What's happening to this
contemporaries,
place?
or even anything that's really come since, because I can't think of anything even by the composer of the series, or at least most of the series, Akira Yamaoka, that really comes close to the soundtrack, which is that for the most part, the music in this game can be charitably described as what it sounds like throwing a bunch of steel pipes down into like a dryer, and that it's just like hardcore industrial cacophony.
Yeah, we don't really get a lot of actual, like, songs until a lot later. It's just silence and hell.
Yeah, it's just... So I'm playing with Bullet Just 3 on, if you didn't catch it earlier. That's just so I can not have to worry about things like ammo.
So we can just take a beautiful tour through...
Nice stroll.
Though I think both me and Ray agree that this is probably the best Silent Hill, as in, like, the actual town out of the whole series.
Oh yeah, like, it's one of my bigger complaints about the series as it's gone on. It's less so in 2, and especially in 3. My biggest problem with 3 is that you spend the very little time in the town in 3, and it's a very small portion of it. And you also spend very little time in the... Well, you do spend more time in the town in 2, but it's still you're just retreading old ground each time. You cover a lot of the town in this game. It does a very good job of making the town feel very big, and not just because the streets are apparently 8-lane highways. But
I mean, it's just a very... There should be people living here, and they're not. Like...
That's another thing that I really like about this, like, is in Silent Hill 2 and 3, the areas that you go through are a lot more dilapidated and unkempt. And they are... I'm just as worried about getting tetanus from a rusty nail as getting bitten by a demon dog from them. Whereas these areas, like... Whereas the town in Silent Hill 2 and 3 has clearly been abandoned for some time. These areas here, like, this is a lived-in town. It looks like things went wrong here, like, yesterday.
Like, there's not even a layer of dust on everything. All the windows are intact, no boarded-up areas.
Yeah,
and honestly, just makes the other world just all that more horrifying, just because everything ages to Nightmare Land in 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's my favorite town out of the series, bar none, because of that.
It just makes for such a unique atmosphere of just... Some part of you just almost half wonders as you just roam around, are you even supposed to be scared of this place? Well, I mean, like, now, before, like, there'll be grates in the ceiling and the sky. And, it's our car.
Good thing
Man,
we
he really picked up...
Yeah, energy drink on the way here.
And, like, Harry really picked up a good dad van. I mean, that thing, like, went through a concrete wall and came out pretty okay. Just a few busted head shields. So yeah, it does really just have such a unique feel for a survival horror game, like...
Because, like, yeah, survival horror games prior to this were all very much in the style of Resident Evil, which is, from, like, a level design perspective, a lot of very closed hallways, claustrophobic. And you get that here, like, we'll get there, but, like, these big open areas that you can get lost in were not a thing that were really in these kind of games. Or really kind of in games in general at this point. The PlayStation was not, it wasn't super powerful. It didn't really handle these kinds of areas well, which is why you see, like... And the big problem was draw distance, like, its ability to render areas that you could see far in... There it is. Was fairly small, which is why this is another good example of art from adversity, because the most iconic thing about Silent Hill, which is the foggy town, was a byproduct of just trying to mask hardware limitations, because they wanted to do this big open town, but, like, things would constantly be popping in the distance, and it would look like garbage. So that fog masks the short draw distance at the PlayStation, while also creating like this really kind of oppressive atmosphere.
Like you can't really see anything. The only big warning that you have is just that your radio's gonna go off, which is kind of like another really big secondary kind of iconic thing about the thing. And just like long before you see what's going to kill you, you just hear that goddamn radio and go, oh shit. It's not gonna be fun.
Which is the radio is another point that I have that is... I think the radio is actually done the best in this game out of all the other ones. And we'll see it especially in the school whenever I'll go ahead and turn it off right now, but unlike in a lot of the rest of the series... oops. The radio is really not that necessary when it comes to later entries, because the monsters are designed and such that they all give really, really, really loud and obvious tells. And some of them even have their own accompanying music. Like, so... It's more like a legacy feature than something that you really need, but the radio in this game is really helps you prepare yourself, because like you'll see it in the school whenever we get there, like some enemies without them are pretty much silent.
Isn't this Cheryl's sketchbook?
To school.
She's at the school.
Nice of her to leave a note, though.
Yeah, like... I like how he assumed that it was Cheryl that left him a note telling him to go to the school.
You know, in blood.
Looks just like you, Harry. So, yeah, we'll get the steel pipe. We're not going to get much mileage out of it because I have essentially infinite ammo because of bullet adjust. But one of the bigger problems when it comes to the Silent Hill series in general, as far as survival horror goes, is the melee combat. And not because it's bad, but the opposite because it's good. Or in a balanced sense, it's completely viable. Because survival horror combat, a lot of people complain about it not being fun, that it's awkward, and yeah, it's awkward, and some people try to write it off as an excuse, like, oh, it's supposed to accentuate the fear, and you're not supposed to be this super soldier, you're like this everyman. You don't have a lot of gun training and stuff like that. And I guess, yeah, that's true, but really it comes down to the way survival horror combat is the way it is for two primary reasons. One is because of tank controls. You need to be able to, when you're playing a game where your camera angle is constantly shifting, you need to be able to confront the thing attacking you with certainty of where you're aiming. And if you can't certainly aim, then like everything falls apart. So like if I was going down that hallway earlier and I was getting attacked and I wasn't able to have precise control over what I was attacking, that'd be the worst. So that awkwardness, I guess, comes from the necessitation of tank controls. But it's also more it's survival horror combat is less about, you know, the visceral action and more about the resource management and metagame. It's about figuring out the bullet economy. How many bullets is a health drink worth, or a green herb, or what have you? And it's then deciding whether or not fighting is even worth it. And that's kind of where Silent Hill falls flat, is because if you're out, like, encounters can't be designed as carefully in Silent Hill because they never know how many bullets or health drinks you're going to have, because you can always just be whacking everything with a pipe and have a bunch of bullets. So in a lot of ways, they just kind of make up for that by throwing a lot of enemies at you. Like you saw that corridor that went down earlier with like 2 dogs and 2 of those pterodactyl-looking things. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's the issue is, oh, I can do it this time. I did it right.
Yes.
No dogs around.
No.
Nothing in particular, even.
And like this thing, like, friggin' dolphin jumped right through his face. Like, through his face!
Like... So yeah, our protagonist, he is a kind and caring father, but he is not what you would call a smart man.
To be fair, he is an English major.
No, but you'd think that'd make him really good with observation, right?
Oh, yeah! More sketchbook pages covered in blood.
This is another thing here that kind of went away with the rest of the series. It comes back here and there. I think it was back in Homecoming. I don't remember. I try not to remember that game. I know it was back for Downpour, but like the exploded roads, it's just a way to make sure you can't the kind of funnel the player character down. Actually, now that I think about it, that's a pretty slick way of like funneling the character, the player character, where the developers want you to go without trying to really aggressively signpost them, because it still gives you the ability to explore, but also you can't go everywhere you want to. So it's like, okay, now I know I can't go this way, so I gotta find a new route to go.
Oh man, though sometimes there are occasional like old game things that drive me up the wall. Like there's one key that we're gonna get to soon. I think it's like when we actually get into the doghouse house that we need to actually sort of counterintuitively like walk a little bit off the sheer cliff to get into a mailbox that we can't really see from our point of vantage.
But I completely like. Listen to how quiet that enemy is without the radio.
Yeah, it's just that dog's just minding its own business.
And then. Because I know specifically in Silent Hill 3, the dogs are super loud.
Yeah, they like grunt and snort and chomp and...
But as I was saying earlier with the melee combat, because of that, the Silent Hill games have never been particularly difficult, at least not on the default setting. You can, of course, up the difficulty and put all the kinds of modifiers you want. But on its base, on a normal playthrough, these games aren't that difficult. The enemies aren't super threatening, though. I think the enemies are more threatening in this entry than in especially 2, but maybe even 3.
Like, how did Terry not see that key with his amazing ability of detection? Nope, no dogs around here. So yeah, this is like another example of like, look at this place. It's like, I half expect the family to just come down and offer me a cup of coffee. Like, everything's like all in order. The chairs are nice and even. Nothing's tipped over. No broken stuff.
Yeah, it feels like I'm breaking and entering.
Everything's clean. It's just...
So this is our first, I guess, puzzle of the game. I just gotta go on a fetch quest to find some keys to open up that door to progress.
Pretty quick and easy, all things considered. Except for the sheer cliff, as I mentioned, that drove me nuts the first time I played this.
That's Finley's the closest. Just listening to this game, it's just a lot more just... So the biggest comparison point for Silent Hill has always been Resident Evil. Those were the two, survival horror
big
juggernauts.
dogs.
Like they were the two series that mattered, and then everybody else was just kind of chasing after them.
I admit that I have not played the Resident Evil series, and that's my fault. I'm working on it. So I'm going to be asking you from a more story perspective. Like, how do these two kind of stack up against each other, would you say?
They could not be more different. The Resident Evil... I went there. Did I go... Is this where I need to be? This is not where I need to be. The Resident Evil stories are very much centered on, like, science gone wrong. Like, it's bioweapons, it's zombies, it's evil corporations. They're apparently, from what I understand, there's a lot of plot holes. Like, I've played a handful of Resident Evils. I played Remake, I played CVX, I've 4 and 5, a little bit of Outbreak, but not a whole lot. I'm not, you know, a scholar of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But the stories are very much rooted in the real world. Whereas Silent Hill is firmly in the supernatural. Just... What was that?
What was that?
I don't know. I've never heard the game make that noise before.
What the Man, that's another amazing thing about this game. Like, we've played this, what, like maybe 6 times each, and it's always a treat every time we run into something we missed. That's just how much love was put into this twisted,
Sure.
crazy...
It's a treat.
Treat. A treat. Not to be done alone before bed. But I will stand by that one of the things that I like about this series, from just a basic video game perspective, is I know the words come up a lot, but there is a ton of... This is a bad time to say with a dog head, but there's a ton of love really put into this game, both in how it was designed, for what purpose. Like, there are games that are spiritless, and there are games that you can tell that the team was just really, really into it. From what I can tell about its original dev, a lot of the group that was working on this hadn't really done horror games before, so they were just trying to do a lot of reverse engineering. They were basing it off of kind of a plethora of things like movies and novels. They were just fans of a lot of different concepts, so they really were just trying to make a very standalone, just a story that they was kind of outside of their basic realm of capacity, and it just kind of came across really, really well for it. Like, this is like one of the few things that a lot of game series that stretch through a lot have, like, their first installment just be borderline bizarre compared to the rest of them, but no, this really holds up very well, just in terms of how it was put together graphically, the gameplay, not the voice acting, but...
That's really the only sore spot.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your favorite key?
That's stupid, Jordan! Oh, it makes me so mad. So I guess that's just kind of why I really, really appreciate this series. I like horror. I wouldn't call myself a junkie, but I just really, really love how kind of basically exceptional this game is, for lack of a better term.
I would say that for the most part I don't like horror, which is why whenever I run into horror media that really I like and want to stick with, it really sticks to me, which is why I love, you know, the Silent Hill series so much, which is why I love System Shock 2 so much, because I like those games at face value enough that, like, they made me want to endure and stick with it. But it's just... Again, like, it's just, you can tell just so much care went into making this game, that they really put everything the PlayStation would handle and could take from them. And you can definitely see, like, well, the teams did change here and there over the years. Like, this level of care stayed with them through at least the first 3 games. There's some stuff in 4 too that definitely has hallmarks of the series, but things change at Silent Hill Homecoming, obviously, because it's a new development team.
And, like, I could go on and on. Honestly, both of us can go on and on, like, about all of the problems that once the Silent Hill team was kind of handled more into fans of Silent Hill's hands versus kind of the intentions of the original team. But we'll probably be getting on that later. I mean, we could probably write essays on it just when we're playing Silent Hill 2, so we'll just pin that to a wall for now.
Though,
and
oh, this is a bad time. But we'll get talking about this later, and definitely 2, but especially 3 whenever we get there, because we do plan to get there. But the Silent Hill series, both from a perspective of the development side of things, and also on the fan side of things, is a really good example of kind of the divide between pre- and postmodern media criticism. Because there's very two distinct camps when it comes to talking about Silent Hill, and there's one that is just runs around banging their pots of pan, screaming the author's dead. And there's another camp that is very much firmly screaming long live the author. Because, like, even though, like, you won't really see this, the words and the theories kicked around a lot, like, the Silent Hill has been kind of one of the few places in video games where you've seen some real, like, literary criticism in regards to, like, the death of the author and, like, the merits of different interpretations. Because there are some people who, you know, stick very closely to, this is what the author said, this is what this means, so these are your answers, and anything that's not this thing is wrong. And that there is also other people who have much more open interpretations of these games and what they mean. And there's merits to both of them. And that's the way it's always been. There's always been merits to both of those schools, but that's kind of something that you don't really see when it comes to video game talk.
And to both schools, there are a dark side. Which, again, we're probably going to get talking to a lot more when we talk about 2, which is probably the great... which is either the Great Monolith or the Great Spectre, and or both of the whole series.
So, another thing about this game is I think it actually has very, very, very good pacing when it comes to, you know, the way the levels are spread out, because we just spent a good, looking over here, about 40 minutes running around, collecting those keys in that first part of the town. We got enough time to really, we had 2 different kind of enemies. We had enough time to learn this, kind of learn the layout, learn how to deal with those enemies, while we solve this first roadblock. And then as soon as we get past this, they throw us into something different.
Like, just when you think, like, this is okay-ish on the scary side, it's like, oh,
yeah,
right.
Just when you start to think, I can handle this.
Yeah, no, never mind.
But, this table right here is a perfect for instance of... Oh boy, what is going on, Harry? Of what, how much I like the environment design. Because... you know, there's a lot of video game-ness in this game. Like, the amount of the prevalence of just, like, handgun bullets on the streets and stuff like that. That's necessary for, you know, playability. You need to be able to have resources to play the game. You have to have bullets, you have to have health drinks. It's just a necessary evil. But right here is an example of, like, sometimes they try hard to, like... And this also serves the atmosphere of the game as well, because you have these 2 health drinks that are sitting next to these 2 empty lawn chairs, and it looks like, and there's also that little blood splatter right there, next to it, on the ground.
It tells a story. Not a fun story, but...
yeah, like, it just really serves to give this environment a real lived-in and get a feeling, and again, like, things just went bad before I got here.
It honestly even just kind of creates the thing. It's like, am I here? If that makes any sense. is all of this, like, actually in real time, kinda actually happening? And now it's just like, speaking of, like, tons of enemies in a tight hallway. Whoa, boy!
Yeah,
This is not a fun run on your, like, very, very, very first time playing this.
yeah, it's dark. This is the first time you've encountered darkness in your flashlight. And, like, granted, you can turn this off, and for the most part, the enemies will ignore you because they can't find you. But for one, you can't use the map, that's a really good touch. I like. So in order to be able to find your way, you have to make yourself vulnerable. And two, I don't like playing these games with the flashlight off because you miss out on a lot of the good, like, art direction and set design and monster design and stuff like that because you can't see anything.
Like, I mean, like, I know, like, somewhere down this road you can actually, like, see painted murals that they throw on the wall. Like, this place is pitch black. Like, who is going to notice this on any of their first playthroughs? Guys, you really loved this town.
Oh, nope. I need to come here later. I made a mistake.
Whoa. Also, I'm not sure if this is a mistake or not, but the fact that it's snowing and it kind of looks like it's, like, spring, like, full kind of late June-y, everything's green spring is just kind of another thing that's just adds a nice touch of what is going wrong. Because, I mean, like, those are more... This kind of looks like more of, like, a temperate zone-y kind of thing, and those are kind of more foliage-y, leaves turn green, like, leaves change over the autumn sort of thing, so this looks like it should be, like, in summerish, and if, like, this is a tourist thing... Like, he's probably taking Cheryl out probably in more of a warm season, yet there's snow. There is...
Yeah. I don't think they've ever given an official location for where Silent Hill is supposed to be, but I think, like, all arrows point to it being somewhere closest to the Great Lakes.
I've heard, like, either Great Lakes or Washington-ish tends to be, I think, the two big schools of thought. Yeah, look at the size of that bed. These kids are friggin' spoiled.
Just like in my Japanese anime.
Don't!